Egyptian stock market, European markets and oil futures fall on the news that an Egypt airplane has disappeared on its way from Paris. World Bank approves a 5-year plan to lend Tunisia up to $5 billion to support economic reforms. Plus, China decries a U.S. decision to impose steep duties on Chinese-made cold-rolled flat steel. Good afternoon and welcome. This is Business Incorporated. I'm Chimizi Obi Iwago. The Egyptian stock market fell more than 2% as at midday today on the news that an Egypt airplane has disappeared on its way from Paris, France. A total of 66 passengers were reportedly on board. European stock markets were also in negative territory on the news. The German DAX was down 1.18% in early trade, while the London FTSE 100 fell 1.14%. The broader Stoxx 600 index shed 0.5%. The shares of aircraft maker Airbus Group was shaved 1.3% on the Egypt air disaster news. Crude prices shed 2.05% at 10 a.m. Nigerian time today at $47.19 at the futures market. The shares of travel operators and airlines were equally in the red. And in Asian market, stock markets fell after the latest minutes from the U.S. Federal Reserve indicated it could raise interest rates as soon as June. South Korea's Kospi fell 0.5%, while Australia's S&P ASX 200 ended 0.6% lower. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index closed 0.7%, while the Shanghai Composite closed flat at 2,806.91. According to analysts, the market believes the probability of a U.S. rate rise in June has now increased to 32%. In Japan, shares rose in early trading after data showed machinery orders rose in March. The benchmark Nikkei 225 index ended up closing flat at 16,646.66, while the broader topics fell 0.14%. Well, let's go to Europe. A lot to chew there. Sadly, an Egypt airline carrying passengers from Paris suddenly disappeared and now has been reported crashed. Let's cross over to Frankfurt Stock Exchange to know how the market is doing at the moment. DWTV Channel's TV correspondent Javier Arguedas is standing by. Good afternoon, Javier. The Egypt air disaster dragged European markets in early trade today. Are the negative sentiments tapering now at midday? What are traders and investors speaking about right now?
Well, of course, this is a very sad day, especially if you consider that Frankfurt is also the most important airline hub. So the city actually feels with anyone who is suffering the consequences of this accident, we don't know if we should call it an accident yet, but exactly that is the problem. When there is uncertainty, like in this case, what we see are mostly slight losses, perhaps a little volatility in most of the stocks, especially those related to the tourism industry as a whole. So for the DAX, the main German index, that means that Lufthansa is seeing slight losses of about 0.1%. In France, of course, the Air France KLM stock is also down about 0.3%. We don't know if the airport in Paris had any security flaws that might have caused this in any way. So until there is certainty, we will probably see a lot of insecurity among investors as well. This is very typical. We have seen this after most of the recent events that have been related to terrorism in the end. If this is going to be the case, well, I can't tell you now, of course, but the pointers are there definitely, because this is a very uncommon crash if it was caused by technical problems. So in the end, that is what investors have in mind right now. This is especially sad news for the tourism industry in Egypt, which was already suffering and is getting yet another major hit.
Really, it's really a sad one there, Javier. Well, bring us up to speed about some of the leadership changes being reported at Deutsche Bank.
Well, that is yet another story that is also very sad, at least for the current CEO, John Cryan. Let's not forget that Deutsche Bank had two CEOs, and from today, with the new or most recent General Assembly of Shareholders, he is taking over as the sole CEO of the most important German bank. However, that does not mean that the problems of the bank are over. They are, in fact, far from over. Last year, when he took office in conjunction with the other former co-CEO, John Cryan actually put all the bad figures into the company's sheets so that he generated a record loss. But that was supposed to be the beginning of a new era where Deutsche Bank would finally shine, and that is not the case. The stock has lost more than 50% throughout the year, and there are yet another scandal or new scandals coming up, especially in Russia, where allegedly the bank would be involved in money laundering cases. So in the end, the times and what is about to come for Deutsche Bank is not good at all, and he has not been able to re-establish the confidence and the trust in what used to be one of Germany's most renowned companies.
Now, Javier, the UK retail sales figures came in at a strongly positive 1.4% in April and 4.3% since New Year. Will Brexit spook the strong data for the UK if yes vote prevails on June 23rd?
Well, the truth is that nobody knows. All the predictions around what might or might not happen in case of a Brexit are actually just assumptions, because we do not know how the country is going to move towards new free trade agreements, for example, that might also hit the way that consumers behave, or how which alliances the country is going to have with its most important allies, especially, of course, the European Union, ironically, but also the United States. What can be said at this point is that the fact that the economy is somehow moving solidly is a good sign and good news for the stay movement, because if the country is going strong, well, that is definitely something that will not help the people who are saying that the country should have such a major change. So we are still expecting to see what is going to happen. It's important to stress out that from an investor point of view, the most important or widely spread opinion here is that the UK is going to stay in the European Union, but again, no one can really tell until it's there.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Javier. Javier Aguedas, DWTV Channels TV correspondent, reporting there from the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. We move on now. Moody's Investor Services has cut the growth rates of some of the top global economies. On the latest list are the United States, Canada, Italy, Japan, and the United Kingdom. The rating agency sees a backtrack in Chinese growth as one of the biggest risks to the global economy. Forecast is slowed down to 6.3% in 2016. The world's #1, United States, is estimated to grow 2% this year, slower than previous estimate of 2.3%. Moody's say the U.S. Central Bank will raise interest rates twice in the current year. And China has decried the U.S. decision to impose steep duties on Chinese-made cold-rolled flat steel. The Ministry of Commerce said China is strongly dissatisfied with the United States' final ruling on the issue. On Tuesday, the U.S. Commerce Department set final anti-dumping duties at 265.79% and anti-subsidy duties at 256.44% on imports of cold-rolled flat steel from China. China is taking action under the World Trade Organization dispute settlement framework.